This is the Psion WaveFinder, a DAB device for PCs released in the early 2000s. It connects to a computer with a USB cable, allowing you to listen to DAB digital radio stations with the bundled Windows application. This came out when digital radios were still quite expensive and before home broadband connections were commonplace. In this video we'll look at the launch of the WaveFinder, the early years of DAB, and get the device installed on a Windows XP laptop and see how it works more than 20 years after its launch. I won't be doing a teardown or getting too deep into the technical details, but I will link to another video on YouTube if that's something you would like to see. First, I think it's interesting to look at the launch of the WaveFinder. It came from Psion Infomedia. Psion was a British technology company formed in 1980, which became known for its personal digital assistants. In the late 90s, Psion Software became Symbian Limited, a joint venture with Ericsson, Motorola and Nokia. The Symbian mobile operating system would be used on millions and millions of devices from those companies and others. Eventually, Symbian was acquired by Nokia, and later on Psion was acquired by Motorola Solutions. But back in January 2000, Psion plc announced the creation of its Psion Infomedia subsidiary, which would focus on opportunities with audio, video and communications with the internet. The company said the new subsidiary would design and market what it called innovative, interactive, information and entertainment appliances for the home and mobile environments. The first product was to be in the field of digital audio broadcasting, or DAB. The company also confirmed it would be outsourcing the manufacturing and distribution of the WaveFinder. By April, Psion had taken a stake in Radioscape, a company working on digital radio technology and software. They would later be joined by Texas Instruments, who made their own investment. Before the end of 2000, Psion Infomedia and UBC Media Group agreed to join the MXR consortium, which was bidding for regional DAB multiplex licenses in the UK. MXR was founded by Chrysalis Group, Capital Radio, Jazz FM, along with the Guardian Media Group. Ford UK would also be involved. Psion and UBC agreed to work on applications and content for a data channel, which would run on multiplexes won by the consortium, as well as management of an electronic program guide. While we go through the installation and setup here on Windows, let's talk a bit about the history of the WaveFinder itself. Psion envisaged the device allowing consumers to see what was on the radio, interact with stations and services, and record the stations to the PC. They called the WaveFinder a smart antenna, which included a radio tuner and digital signal processor inside a design that they said combined stylish mood lighting with new age external sculpting. The design came from IDEO, the design consultancy behind an array of devices like digital cameras, PDAs, Audible's 1997 mobile player, the first Apple mouse, and even 1990s interactive radio concepts for the BBC. IDEO also worked on the design of the Queen's Jubilee baton for the Commonwealth Games in 2002. IDEO also worked on the interactive design. The radio stations would appear as an interactive map, giving access to the available broadcasts with icons that could be moved to create customized layouts. E-commerce technology company Lost Wax developed the user interface software, while the DAB receiver module came from Roque Manor Research. The same gold card module was used by Arcam in their DT81 tuner. The WaveFinder was officially launched in September 2000, actually about a week after VideoLogic, before it was known as Pure, announced their first DAB hi-fi tuner. The WaveFinder was available at PC World and Dixon's by November for £299.95. In 2001, the price of the WaveFinder dropped to £199.99. MXR also announced that state secondary schools within the MXR transmission areas would be able to get a free WaveFinder, giving them access to free educational data from a new service on DAB called the DigiNet. UBC estimated that they could send over 2,000 pre-vetted web pages of information to schools every day for free. UBC also teamed up with radio group GWR to launch a data service on the national commercial multiplex. The DigiZone service, which would be available to anyone with a WaveFinder, would provide access to a news service from ITN, a cartoon game service from the Cartoon Network, and companion data services to Classic FM and the digital music station Core. The data services like the DigiZone took advantage of DAB's ability to transmit data as well as audio at much higher speeds than the dial-up internet of the time. The BBC offered BBC Vision Radio as well. The idea was that data, such as news and information as web pages, would be cached on the PC and available to view instantly. There was an external antenna available for the WaveFinder for just under £15, and before long the WaveFinder itself could be found for well under £100. By the end of 2004, the product was no longer available to buy, and in 2005 the BBC discontinued its Vision Radio service. Sadly, we won't be able to see any data services like the DigiZone or BBC Vision Radio now, but we can still pick up some DAB stations. This is the setup I've got for the WaveFinder. I've just mounted it on the end of these shelves here vertically, of course, for DAB reception. And then on this table, we've just got a early 2000s Windows laptop. This is just a Sony Vaio plugged into a USB hub, and that is where the Psion WaveFinder and its power supply is plugged into. So we've got that ready to go. So now we can start taking a look at some of the software. I'm at the desktop in Windows now, and this is Windows XP Service Pack 1. So if you look online, the information about this device, I don't believe it's compatible with Service Pack 2, but I've been using it on and off for a few weeks in Service Pack 1 and it's been okay. So I installed the software from the CD that came with the device, and that was driver version 1.2. I've since upgraded to 1.4, and hopefully that's what we'll see in a few minutes. So on the screen here I have some applications that I've installed. I have WaveFinder at the top. That's the software from Psion, and then I have some third-party applications that work with the WaveFinder here below, and we'll try and look at all of them in this video. I'll apologise now if I have to edit the screencast and showing you the WaveFinder software. I find that the longer the device is in use, the poorer the reception gets, and then eventually you can't pick up any stations and you have to restart the PC and things. So we'll see how we go, but if there's any edits, that might be why. So I'll double click on the WaveFinder logo or icon to launch the software. We have a splash screen. And then there's a few different bits to the UI. So we have this bar down at the bottom here with some buttons on it. And then we have this area above which is called the Wave Map. And that's the interface for browsing stations. So rather than a straightforward list of stations, we do have this layout of logos with the station name and so on. So I'll come back to the stations in a second. I'll just talk about some of the buttons in the UI first. So of course we have the WaveFinder logo, and this works as a bit of a signal strength meter, I think. We have a button to open and close the map. We have a button for last stations. One to search if you want to find a station. And then we have a button for options. So the first option is for help. And this seems to be pretty comprehensive. I've had a look through this a few times. Your normal Windows help sort of from this era. Quite nice to have it on the PC and not be taken off to the internet. It's good just to browse it here. So we've got lots of different bits of information there about searching for stations, changing stations. And this icon or logo is interesting, BBC Vision Radio. So that's no longer available. We won't be able to check that out. But that's how the logo would have looked for it if we wanted to access that web page type content from the BBC if that was still available. Looking elsewhere on the help, we've got some information here, some troubleshooting tips, all quite good information to have, so it's nice to have that help built in. The next option is about, and we can see there Psion Infomedia WaveFinder version 1.4. We have some names we've already mentioned in this video. We have Radioscape, Lost Wax, and yeah, we can just close that. Through the options, links to the internet, so homepage and registration and checking for an update. Animate between map views, we'll see that in a second. HTTP port, I think that's related to the way that you can view the web page type content. I think the WaveFinder software has a small web server built in, and we might see a bit of that shortly. We can record as MP2 or MP3. I've just set that to MP3 at the moment, and then we have timer recorder. So this is something that wasn't in the 1.2 version of the software. This might be something Psion has later added to the software, and I've tried it already. I did do a few recordings, but we can see here that we can set up a new recording. We have to do the arrow keys to browse through the list of stations. But this is quite good if you wanted to set up a schedule, you want to record something on Radio 4, you know the time and the date, choose the format, put the file on your C drive somewhere. That's quite handy. So in advance, you know, you can set up a recording and then put the software into timer mode and set up your recordings that way. I think that's a really neat feature back in the day to have this, that you could be recording your shows. This is of course in the days of dial-up internet maybe, or before that full programs were available to listen to online. So great to have that. And of course you can keep the MP3s, put them on your device, whatever you want to do with them. The next button along is scan. That will do a scan for stations. I have recently done a scan which found the D1 national stations, the BBC's national stations, and the T-side local multiplex as well. And then the other options here, we can rearrange the map. So at the moment we're viewing it by multiplex, but we can go by content instead. And there's that jazzy animation. So the news stations together, the varied speech stations together, rock music together, pop music together. I think that's really neat. I like that quite a bit. And then we can come in here. I created a map called Sunday, and we can see that I started organizing some stations. What you could do, for example, if you were still using this in 2025, is have your own map where you put all of the DAB stations together, and then you have all the DAB plus stations out of the way. That would be useful because this device only works with DAB stations and not DAB plus. So if we come back to the multiplex view and put all of the D1 stations together, we can see that we've got things like Radio X and Kiss and Capital Dance. None of these are going to be available because they are DAB plus stations, but we will be able to listen to LBC and Talk Sport, for example. So if I zoom in here as well, you can see the icons or the logos for the stations, the branding. So we can see here Classic FM, Talk Sport, they do have their correct logos sort of now. I guess the way to say it would be they have the logos for those stations, but they're the old logos that when this software was released. We can see that LBC has an icon for the lounge, Smooth UK has Life, Absolute Radio has the Virgin Radio logo, because Virgin Radio, Absolute Radio is what it became later on, but when this software came out it was Virgin Radio. And we can see as well that we have some branding on the BBC stations, so 5 Live, Radio 1 and so on. I think if we look at the T-side multiplex, none of those have the correct branding. They just have just like a placeholder icon of sorts. So what we can do is we will go and see if we can listen to a station, and we'll try Talk Sport. So to do that, I can click on the Talk Sport icon and it will open up a little piece of the UI, which is just popping up here, and it says tuning, please wait. So we're just waiting for that to come through. I can hear the audio starting now, and we've got here TalkSport Drive every weekday from 4 PM to 7 PM. So I can click on this little button here to expand that and to close it. We've also got a volume slider, and we have a button here for recording audio. So that's something I can do if you are wanting to record the end of a program or just the program as you are sat in front of the PC. You can click that, it will be recording, and then when the recording's finished, click it again and you'll be prompted to save that MP3. What I think is a fantastic feature is that I can open up another station, in this case LBC, and I'm going to pop that there. So I'm going to listen to LBC live, but I'm going to record Talk Sport. So if you imagine that you wanted to listen to two programs that were on at the same time, you could be recording BBC Radio 4, record a documentary or The Archers or something, and then on LBC, or sorry, if you're on the BBC multiplex, 5 Live, you would then be listening to a commentary, sport commentary maybe, and then you've got those two things going on at the same time. So it only works on the same multiplex, so I can record Talk Sport while I'm listening to LBC, or I could record Radio 4 while I'm listening to Radio 1. I think that's brilliant. So I shall stop the Talk Sport recording.
she's not even dark horse candidate anymore.
And I'll be prompted to save the MP3 file somewhere. So I've already done a few tests this morning. Let's just say that's test 2, and I'll save that. And then I'm going to close LBC, I'm going to close TalkSport, come over to my documents, and then we've got TalkSport test 2 from this morning, and I can play that back. So even though I was listening to LBC live, I've got that TalkSport recording, and if I'd done that on the BBC, maybe recorded Radio 4 while listening to something else, that would be a fantastic thing to have. One more thing I want to try in the WaveFinder software, which I've not had much success with, but we will give it a go anyway, is when we look at these icons, we can see they have a little speaker. So BBC Radio 1 there is a little speaker, so that's an audio service. But we see we have this one here, although some of these stations are missing their labels, we can see that's got lines as if to indicate text. So if I click on that one, fingers crossed the WaveFinder will tune in, but we're not going to hear any audio. What we're going to see, oh, it has popped up now, BBC Guide. And if I drag this up here, we can see it says downloading. So this is downloading hopefully the EPG data from the BBC Guide. So when you had things that I mentioned earlier, those services, web-based services available on DAB, this might be how you did it. So we've seen here how Internet Explorer has launched localhost port 8080. So this is where that small web server is running, and we're just waiting for that data to download from the BBC Guide. I don't think it's going to display. I have tried this quite a few times now, and Internet Explorer just sits at this screen. So maybe the way that this data is on the multiplex, it's not what the WaveFinder is expecting to find as a text or a web-based service. But we'll see it will just go to downloading, and then yeah, it just sticks at this screen. So there are some options in the menu while it's doing that. We can do stop viewing, and we can do save data. I have tried doing save data, but we're not actually able to, save .html files or anything like that. So I think maybe the format that the BBC Guide is in nowadays just doesn't line up, and maybe never did line up with the WaveFinder software. But when it goes to complete on this downloading, we shall see. So we can see that download is finished. Internet Explorer refreshes, but we never get to see any content. So I think it's just not compatible. This save data button here, I have tried this a few times and unfortunately not able to do anything. But I am going to jump into this test folder in a minute and just take a look at these files here. So that is a quick look at the audio and the data services. Let's end that, and we will close Internet Explorer, and let's close WaveFinder as well. So we saw that it downloaded some data into a test folder, and what we have are these EIB files, and we have some image files. So I'm going to go to thumbnails, and this is quite interesting because it shows that it is pulling in data. And bear in mind, this laptop is not connected to the internet. These are logos that are currently transmitted on the BBC National Multiplex. If you have a suitable radio, it will display these. So the WaveFinder software is able to pull in that data, pull in anything off that BBC Guide, EPG and logos. So it is interesting. It's able to pull in all of these assets, but it's not able to display them. We could see if we can open one of these in Notepad maybe, and just see if there is anything in a format there we can see. Yeah, is that some sort of encoding there? We can see, the way there is text here, but yeah, not what the software can see. So that's a look at the WaveFinder software, and we'll move on to looking at some of the other applications for the WaveFinder. In the 2000s, there were some different applications that you could download or even purchase to use with the WaveFinder. So independent developers able to create applications. I don't know if there was maybe an API or a software development kit or some way of knowing how to interface with the hardware, the WaveFinder itself. But we have these great applications. I've been able to find a few of them online still, which we can try out today. So the first one I want to look at is DAB bar. So I'll open this up, and I think it's brilliant that application developers have been able to come along, take their own approach to things and put these out on the internet, which is, to me, that's That's just such an interesting part of this device. So we have DAB bar here. I'm going to right click on the icon here, and let's have a look first at the options, because we have a few options here we didn't have or I didn't see in the WaveFinder software. Information about the developer on the first tab. In the general tab, we've got an option to show the audio stream information, so that would tell us it's 64 kilobits per second mono, for example, and we can change the speed that the scrolling text comes across. Some options here for recording, and we've got a tab here for timer as well, and we'll look at the schedule and stuff in a minute. We have HTTP server. I'm not going to try changing those settings. And then we've got frequency. So when I first installed the software and did a scan, it was set to UK frequencies, and that only found 2 or 3 multiplexes, possibly the same ones that we had in the WaveFinder software. But what you can do is go over to band 3 and L band, and then if we come down here, I've ticked all the multiplexes that I might be able to receive here. So that means that when I did a scan, we also got SDL national, and those stations were missing in the WaveFinder software, for example. And then we have a tab to do a scan, and I've already done that. Clicking here again, we've got timer. Do you want to delete scheduled events that pass? No. So this is one that I've done in the past, did this last week as a test, and again we can set up to do a scheduled event. So we could do Monday, put in a time, put in a length, choose the service. So this would be fantastic if you wanted to record the Archers every day, I suppose. Then you could do that. I think that is such a neat feature. Again, to emphasize, back when this device came out, there wasn't really, to my knowledge, a way of going onto the Radio 4 website pre-broadband and listening to whole episodes of programs like that. So I think that's excellent. And of course you have an MP3 which you can play on different devices as well. Next on the menu we have list. So here are all the stations that the software has found. We can see again we do have icons for some of the stations. That's the old TFM logo, I think, and we've got a few others here. The old Magic logo on Greatest Hits Tees, and we have the classic FM logo, and so on. So I think that's really neat again to have those in the list. This is of course a different approach to the wave map that we saw before. And then what we can do is come out of here and look at recent. So here hopefully I can listen to Talk Sport by clicking on that. I can see the lights going on the WaveFinder, and we'll start to see that scrolling text coming across the screen. So this is another great approach to things. We can right click now and we have an option to do record. So I can do a quick recording if I just want to start recording this, and then of course stop again. And what I'm going to do is go over to Radio 4 because I want to demonstrate another piece of the software here. So from the same developer there's this application called EPG Explorer, and I shall open that up. Do I want to update the EPG listings? Yes, let's do that. So while I'm listening to Radio 4, we can see at the bottom of the screen here it says buffering BBC guide, and it's going to be downloading that data like the WaveFinder software did, and we would like to see if that's going to populate the EPG Explorer software. So we should just watch that as it goes along with the buffering, and I'll come back in a second. We can see we've got retrieving 22 of 23 now from BBC Guide, so in a second or two this should finish downloading that data. So I have tried this a few times, and unfortunately the data is not populated in the EPG Explorer software. So this was released a little while ago, and I'm not sure if maybe the BBC has changed the format of things since this came out, or maybe there used to be other EPG services, and the only one that I'm able to receive here which is available is the BBC's EPG. But we shall wait and see when this completes in the status bar. Currently on 22 of 23. It says 23 objects retrieved, but yeah, unfortunately we don't see those coming through in the software. So I imagine that what you would have been able to do is see stations, programs. We see here we've got schedule and unschedule, so that would have been absolutely brilliant to see that data there, see that a program is coming on later today, and then you could set that up without having to manually put in days, times, durations, things like that. But I will come out of this now, and we'll come out of DAB bar as well. And I do like how the logos are displayed on DAB bar. I'll exit that. And if we go to the C drive, and we go to program files and DAB bar and EPG data. So when we looked at this in the WaveFinder software, we saw those files which we could see some text in there, but what we've got here is actual XML documents. So these might be a little bit different. So you can see I've been trying this a few times, and we'll look at one from today. So these would be one for each station. And we can see that we've got one here that's 4 kilobytes and one here that's 47 kilobytes. So if I was to guess, this might be Radio 4, with a lot more information, whereas the one with 4 kilobytes might be Sports Extra or something, which has fewer programs. So we'll right click on this, go to open with and choose Notepad. And we can see here we do have an XML document. So if I expand this, so we can see here EPG, schedule, program. If you've ever looked at an RSS feed, this might seem a little bit familiar. So we can see here the medium name for the program, BBC News, the long name, BBC News. We have a short description, we have the time and the duration. And I think this is really interesting. So even though this device and this software, is from the 2000s, it can still pull in information. Today's date is the 7th, so we're looking at tomorrow, and we can see what's going to be on this station tomorrow. So let's go forward to let's find 6 a.m. So yeah, I think Newsday, this is the World Service actually, rather than Radio 4. But yeah, so really interesting. It's still able to pull that information in, and we can come out of Notepad here. And again, these will be the logos that get pulled in like we saw before. So if I come to thumbnails, those current branding assets, as it were, for Radio 4, which we can open up here. So yeah, interesting to see that as well. Another application available for the WaveFinder is DABExplorer, and we shall open this one here. One thing I quite like about this is the quick access to stations with these dedicated preset buttons. So a bit like a normal radio or your car radio, just being able to have this up in the corner of the screen and go to those stations. So we shall see if we can listen to a station. Let's try Radio 4, and it says please wait, and we have the flashing lights on the WaveFinder again, and that's come through there. We can see we have a signal strength meter at the top. It says BBC National DAB is the multiplex, Radio 4 is the station, and we do have a station logo there, and we should normally get the scrolling text starting and coming across as well. But yeah, just another great approach, and clicking on the logo, we can pop that up in the corner of the screen. Just another great little application that's available for the WaveFinder. There is one more application I was able to find for the WaveFinder, and that's called WinDAB or WinDAB, and we shall launch that here. I really like the design of this one. I think it's very much of its time. I think it looks fantastic. Again, we've got options to play, stop and record. We have a volume button, and we have a button here for services. So here, stations again organised by the different multiplexes. So we have the BBC's stations, we have the T-side stations, the D1 stations. Again, of course, we're not able to listen to the DAB Plus stations, but this is another interesting approach. And then we have BBC Guide there, but greyed out. So maybe the software knows either it's a data service or it's not an audio service, but it is there on the multiplex. We have a few other things as well. A little signal strength meter here. We've got a button to minimize it, and we can bring it back. The config, I think, is quite interesting. So here we have basic player options, recordings, and this is a very Windows XP type of settings approach, isn't it, from the 2000s. We've got skins, which is really cool. So if you ever, like me, changed your WinAmp skin or your Windows Media Player skin, options to do that, which I think is brilliant. So we should change it back to the default. And then some other settings as well for power, for hardware, hotkeys, quite good if you're going to be a power user of the WaveFinder, and then streaming as well. So I've seen this with a few of the WaveFinder applications, I think, and that is an option to enable an audio streaming server. So if you had this on a PC somewhere, and then maybe on another in your kitchen, you wanted your laptop to have access to those stations, that's something you could potentially do. I would love to try that out at some point and see how that actually works, and get this Windows XP on a laptop on a network with another device and give that a go as a project for the future, I think. But yeah, just another great approach from an independent application developer to making some software for the WaveFinder. So let's actually pick a station. We'll come and try Radio 4 again. We can see it's retuning. We've got the name of the multiplex, and the lights are going on the WaveFinder, and hopefully that will tune in. It doesn't seem to be able to at the moment. It's coming though. Yeah, so 80 kilobits a second it says there, and playing. So now we can start to hear that audio from Radio 4 coming through. And then we do sometimes get the scrolling text as well, but yeah, not showing at the moment there. Let's jump over to, oh, there we go. So we have that scrolling text coming through. So just another fantastic application, and we get some great right-click options here. If you have it minimized, it's just in the task tray. You know, you could quickly do some recording, set up your scheduled recordings, things like that. Just another great piece of software. Thank you for watching this video. Check out the Retro Reviews playlist for more like this. We have looked at the Pure Evoke 1 and the Roberts Robbie in the past, with more retro devices to come. Do you have any additional information, or can you share any corrections? Maybe you remember using the WaveFinder or tried out those data services. Please do leave a comment below.